Everybody, happy Friday. It's Donna from Simply Living Wellness, and wanted to come at you today about an interesting topic for the times, and that being death, and are you afraid of death? I used to be very scared of dying. When I was younger, I'd imagine crazy things happening, like my car crashing or something. And yeah, I just used to be afraid of death. I would think about it, not a ton, but every so often. And but that's completely changed. And I think with what's going on now with the coronavirus, it's definitely, there's so much fear out there. It's hard not to get sucked into all of it. But for me, honestly, I'm not that afraid of it. I feel like if it's my time, then it's my time. And if I'm going to get this illness and I'm not going to make it, then that's the way my journey was meant to go. So there's a couple of things, though, that happened in my life that helped me get to this place where I really don't fear death, a lot. I mean, there's always that little bit of wondering about what happens next and that kind of thing. But I wanted to share an author, Dr. Brian Weiss, with you. He produced the very first book he made, actually, is called Many Lives, Many Masters. This is the one that comes after it, Messages from the Masters. But I highly recommend that if you're interested in soul evolution and where we go after life here on earth, where we came from, there's a lot of beliefs about that. I personally now believe that our souls live on, and more than just going to heaven, but we reincarnate perhaps on earth again, or in another planetary system, another species. And what helped me get there, many things started happening in my life, little stories and things that just popped into my life that led me down that path. But a big part of it was reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. And I got the good fortune of seeing him in San Jose speak. It was an all-day seminar. There were about 300 people in the room. And what he does, it's a really interesting story, actually, because he was a very famous, very affluent, that's the wrong word, but anyway, very well-known psychologist, and was on the board of this large clinic in Miami. And very traditional. He used hypnotherapy in his practice, but he would take his patients back to childhood, and that was it, not past lives. He didn't even believe in past lives. And very sort of more formal training, formal career, formal clinic. And then all of a sudden he had this patient that took him to a past life. And he tells the story of that in the book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And it's a beautiful story. It's absolutely very hard to put down. I read it pretty much in one night and one day. And we were camping, and I was telling my son about it, and he got really excited. And so he read it the next day and the next night. And it was a really good book. So if you have any kind of interest in soul evolution and you wonder, is there life after death? Do our souls live on? Do we reincarnate? Have we lived past lives before? I highly recommend that book. There's many of them out there about this topic, but Many Lives, Many Masters is a fun read, and it's by Dr. Brian Weiss. And then he then had to decide, is he going to go public with this information? Because he was jeopardizing his career and being on the board of this clinic, very large clinic in Miami. And he thought, and he was still not even convinced halfway through this period with this patient, Carrie. But then there was a turning point where he just knew it was real. that the things she was saying were real. And she was telling him things about past lives she had, and he would verify many of them. She would speak another language that she didn't know. She would say facts about things in the past that she did not know in her current life. But still, it could have been possible, right, that she knew these things. And then all of a sudden, she told him, well, I think she was speaking through, these masters were speaking through her. So what happens is when you regress somebody to a past life, they reenact, kind of, they talk about that life as if they were living it again. And so you get insights on their past lives, but then in between the lives, you go into this phase. I don't even really know what he calls it, but that's when you're with the other souls that you travel with. So we die, we go to this place, we come back and reincarnate. And so when we're in this place, there's no body form, it's just our souls. And we reunite with the people that we've traveled with, that we know from past lives. And during that period, the masters, who are, maybe more conscious, more evolved souls, talk to Dr. Brian Weiss through Carrie, through his patient. And so that's what this second book is about, is he documented all those messages that came to him through Carrie and then other patients in past Carrie. But one thing that they said was something about his son, who died at a very young age, and there was something about him that only Dr. Brian Weiss and his wife knew. Nobody else knew. And that information came to him, and he said that was the turning point. And he was describing this whole story at the seminar when I met him in San Jose, or got to hear him speak. And so he was telling the story. It was so beautiful, it was so wonderful to hear. But that was his turning point. So at the seminar, he then regressed the entire room. And, people have different levels of being able to be regressed. Carrie was very easily and quickly able to drop in and visit past lives in her subconscious, in her memories. I unfortunately am not quite as lucky, but I know the more you do it, then the more it starts to happen. I have experienced past regression. What do they call it? It's past life regression therapy, and some things have come up which are really interesting, and not quite like it happens in the story, but I would love to keep doing it to try to remember more of my past life. So anyway, when all this started happening and I went to his seminar and I read these books, and this is another book that I got recently that is just a really cool story about a couple who were in love in a past life, and they reunited in this life, and they reunited through Dr. Weiss. They both were patients of his. They didn't know each other, and by coincidence they met, and he knew, treating both of them, that he started realizing, oh wow, she's talking about him and he's talking about her in a past life. And then he had to decide, does he introduce them or not? But he didn't end up, they ended up meeting anyway by chance. So it's a really, really cute story. And so when all this started happening, I realized, for me, I knew it was true. That's just what I believe. I mean, there's no fact or anything, but after reading these books and hearing him speak and reading other books and talking with other people and other hypnotherapists, I know it's real, and that's just how I feel. But anyway, because of that, I don't really fear death anymore. I mean, sure, if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and look down, I'll be scared. But in general, I just don't live with that fear of, oh, this is one life and I don't want to die. And I don't know, it's just weird. It just kind of shifted for me. So given everything that's going on with this virus and how crazy it's getting, and they say it's going to just get worse and peak only in May, and it's going to be with us for a good year at least, is what the scientists believe. So it is a little bit scary, it is, but I just am able to not live with that fear. So I'm curious what all of you think, what experiences you have with death, with fear of death. Do you know about soul evolution? Hi, Brenda. So glad you're here. I'm just about to wrap up, but I was talking about soul evolution and Brian Weiss's book. This one is Messages from the Masters, and the other one that I read first is called Many Lives, Many Masters, and it's a very, very awesome book. So if you have any fear going on, which I'm sure you don't, Brenda, around this crazy virus, and yeah, it's scary, but I just don't fear death like I used to anymore. And it's because I believe, I know that my soul is going to live on. This is just a tiny drop in the bucket this lifetime. So blessings to all of you out there. Stay safe, stay away from the virus, and let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear the comments afterwards down below. And thanks for joining me.